American Top 40.
The top 80 single hits of 1970 will be presented by American Top 40 in two special holiday packages, Christmas and New Year's weekend. Straight through, number 80 to number 1. Hope you'll join us for that. Right now, time for another debut song, Led Zeppelin, coming in at number 36. It's new to American Top 40, coming in at number 36, Led Zeppelin, Immigrant Song.
American Top 40.
Every week on AT40, we count down the country's biggest hits determined by the official Billboard charts. Well, now we're up to the song by the rock band who just 3 months ago set an amazing record on Billboard's album chart. Within the short span of 7 weeks, they had 9 of their albums enter that LP survey. And nobody else has ever come close. Not the Beatles, not Elvis, not anybody. Now, what made it possible for this group to do this is a common occurrence in the record business. When a recording act has a smash album, new fans get interested in what that act has done in the past. And they start buying the old albums. And if sales are heavy enough, those old albums come back onto the charts. Well, that's what happened with this band. Their latest album, called In Through the Outdoor, was such a hit when it came out last fall that people wanted every previous album they'd ever recorded. There were 8 of those, and every one of them joined the 9th album on the LP chart. And the big thing of it is that all 9 of those records came onto the survey within a 7-week period. Incredible. If this supergroup had recorded more than 9 albums, probably they'd have charted too. Well, this week, the first single from the album that started this gold rush moves up a notch in our countdown. At number 21, here's Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now we're up to a song by the former lead singer of an English supergroup, a supergroup who broke up just 2 years ago. A band who recorded the most popular song in the history of FM radio, a song that was never released as a single. It was first heard in 1971 on an untitled album commonly called Led Zeppelin 4. And over the years, whenever rock radio stations polled their listeners for all-time favorite songs, the tune at the top of the list was almost always this one.
Stairway to Heaven.
From the 1971 album Led Zeppelin 4, that's one of the classic songs of rock and roll, and reputedly the most requested song in the history of FM radio, Stairway to Heaven. And the man who sang Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin's lead vocalist until they disbanded in 1981, is now on the countdown with his first top 40 solo record. Up 3 notches this week to number 29, here's Robert Plant and Big Log.
American Top 40.
We're on our way to the number 1 song in the USA. Now we're up to the current hit by 2 alumni of the number 1 heavy metal band in music history, the English band Led Zeppelin. From the late 1960s through 1980, Led Zeppelin were one of the most innovative and popular bands in rock history. Then, in September 1980, Zeppelin's drummer John Bonham died. The remaining members decided they couldn't go on, and they went their separate ways. A few months ago, singer Robert Plant and guitarist Jimmy Page decided to get back together, but not to play heavy metal music. Instead, they went back to their roots, the sounds of early rock and roll and rhythm and blues. Along with English guitarist Jeff Beck, they recorded a 5-song mini-album of their favorite oldies. They called their new group the Honey Drippers, and their mini-album is titled The Honey Drippers Volume 1. The first single from that record debuts this week. It's a remake of a 25-year-old song by singer Phil Phillips. Coming in at number 33 on American Top 40, here are Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and Jeff Beck, also known as the Honey Drippers, with Sea of Love.
Do you remember when we met? American Top 40.
AT40 originates in Hollywood. Now we're up to a singer from a band who, next to the Beatles, have been called the most influential band in history. They broke up around 1980, but they're still having an impact today. Here's a group that sets standards. They were the first band to do entire tours in arenas, and then stadiums, and selling out without any kind of support group or opening act. We still hear their songs on the radio, and different bands have been inspired by them, borrow bits of their sound, from Whitesnake to U2. And lots of popular bands play versions of their songs in concert. Groups like Heart, Def Leppard, and Crowded House. Recently, the surviving members of this group reunited for just one performance. They played at the 40th anniversary celebration of Atlantic Records. Thousands of their fans filled Madison Square Garden. They listened to 34 other great acts who recorded for the Atlantic label, but waited more than 10 hours for the chance to see the band they kept chanting for. They kept chanting, Zeppelin, Zeppelin. And their dream came true when Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and John Paul Jones took the stage, along with Jason Bonham, the son of Led Zeppelin's late drummer John Bonham. They only played a few numbers, but their sheer power showed anyone who saw it on TV or heard it on the radio what Led Zeppelin was all about. As one anonymous fan told ABC News, it was amazing. I never heard the garden rock like that. Not with the boss, with anybody. I mean, it just rocked. End of quote. The legendary legacy of Led Zeppelin is still flying high in the 80s. Here's Zepp's former singer in our survey with a solo hit. Robert Plant at number 26 with Tall Cool One.
American Top 40.
This is American Top 40. I'm Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to the man who sang the most popular song in the history of FM radio. That's when he was the lead singer of one of rock's greatest supergroups. And this famous song was never even released as a single. Came out in 1971 on this group's fourth album. And over the years, whenever rock radio stations have asked their listeners for all-time favorite songs, the tune at the top of the list is almost always this one.
And she's buying the stairway to heaven.
From the 1971 album without a title, but commonly called Led Zeppelin IV, that's one of the classic songs of rock and roll, and considered the most requested, most popular song in the history of FM radio. Stairway to Heaven. An 8-minute song never released as a single. But if it had been, a lot of people think it would have hit number one. At any rate, for many, Stairway will always be number one. The man who sang it is in our countdown this week with his current solo hit. At number 34, Robert Plant with Tall Cool One. Tall Cool One, Robert Plant took it to 25. Now he drops from 26 to 34. Maybe you noticed how the record ends with bits and pieces of old Led Zeppelin songs. That's done with an electronic recording device called a sampler. Other acts have sampled bits of Zeppelin's records, so Robert Plant figured if anyone could, he could. And the countdown continues.
The hits from coast to coast.